Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okey, kita akan masuk differentiation for how to find the second order differentiation. Okay, so ini kita panggil second derivative. Right, so as the first derivative is itself a function of x, so it can also be differentiated. Okay, so the expression found bila kita differentiate for the second time, that is called second derivative. Okay, so if for first derivative you use as dy dx, so for second derivative we have d2y dx2. Okay, so this is 2. So d2y dx2. Jangan sebut dy2 dx2. So it's called d2y dx2. Okay, and then the second derivative also we use to determine the gradient whether nak check whether the gradient is increase or decrease. Okay, and then for minimum point, so consider the gradient of the function y equals to x squared. So this is gradient. So the first one is the gradient. Okay, and then the red color tu is a gradient. So left hand side means negative and increasing. So kalau kita tengok, okay, left side dia negative and increasing. And then so kat bottom, the bottom one, this one is parallel to x axis. So the gradient is 0. And then, okay, next one is for right hand side. Look at the right hand side. So the gradient is positive and it's increasing. So the first derivative is dy dx. So dy dx equals to 2x. We differentiate y, so we get 2x. And then so the second derivative means we differentiate lagi sekali. You got dy dx is 2x. So when you differentiate for the second time, so we differentiate this 2x, so we will get 2. That is for second derivative. Okay, so second derivative is positive. That means d2y dx2 kita dapat positive. So that when it's positive means when the second derivative is positive, so that look at the gradient. So the gradient it start from negative. Okay, this one negative and increasing. And then this one we have a positive. And then this one is no, this is 0 and this is positive. Right side is positive. So the second derivative is positive means this value, when this value is positive, so that the gradient is increasing and the turning point is a minimum point. Okay, so we call this is minimum point. Okay, the other way that it can help you to memorize whether it is minimum or maximum, you can look at for the shape. So this is the shape, smile shape. So this is minimum. This point is minimum because this is the lowest point. So this called minimum point. And you have the other one is maximum. This parabola graph is maximum. So this is called maximum point. That means this is the highest point of the graph. So that is called maximum point. Okay, next. Consider of the function is y equals to negative x squared. So this one is how we determine the maximum point. So look at the red color of the graph. So from the left hand side, we got positive and decreasing. Okay, and then on top, this one on top, we got the gradient is 0. And then for right hand side, look at, okay, that red color, right hand side, and the gradient is negative and decreasing. Okay, so the first derivative is we differentiate this one, so we got negative 2x. Okay, so the first derivative is negative 2x. Second derivative you will get negative 2. Okay, so since the second derivative is negative, so that negative, the gradient is decreasing and the turning point is maximum point. Okay, before that, don't forget, okay, this is called turning point, maximum point and minimum point. This is turning point. So at turning point, at this point, this is turning point. So at this point, the dy dx equals to 0. Okay, so please remember that at turning point, dy dx 0. So this one at the top. So turning point. Okay, so at turning point dy dx equals to 0. Okay, so please remember that if you got for the second derivative negative, that means the turning point is maximum. Okay, next. Stationary point. Stationary point pun some of the book write as turning point. So stationary point, how to find the stationary point? Okay, first we differentiate the equation. Okay, so teacher dah beritahu tadi, turning point means dy dx 0. So turning point actually, this one sama dengan stationary point. So at turning point or stationary point, dy dx equals to 0. See, the gradient of the curve is 0. So the stationary point also called turning points. Alright. And then differentiate dy dx and then equals to 0. Equals to 0 and then solve the equation. Then you will get your x is 0 and negative 2. That means now we have 2 points. That is first point is 0. The second one is negative 2. Okay, let's say this is negative 2. So now if we look at to the graph, we know that this point is maximum point and at this point is minimum point. But how to prove it? How to determine whether the turning point is maximum or minimum? Okay, so this one, okay, second derivative test. We will use second derivative test to determine whether the turning point is maximum or minimum. Okay, so second derivative, we get 6x plus 6 and then substitute. Okay, we know that our x just now is negative 2. This is 0. So first one, we substitute negative 2 into your d2y dx2, then we will get negative. So I told you before, when your d2y dx2 equals to negative, what do you get? You will get maximum point. That means at this point, that is maximum point. Okay. Next. See? Maximum. Okay. And then check for x equals to 0. Substitute x equals to 0. Then you will get minimum point. Okay. And then to find a stationary point. So test second derivative. Okay. So this is the step how to find the stationary point by using second derivative. Okay. First, find the first derivative. And then put the first derivative equals to 0 and solve for the x coordinate. Okay, that means we put our dy dx equals to 0 to get x punya value. Okay, and then when we get x, the value of x, and then try to differentiate for second time. Okay, find second derivative and work out the value of the second derivative and each stationary point. Okay, so substitute into the into our second derivative, then you will get the value. If our second derivative, okay, d2y dx2 positive, positive mean more than 0. So positive, positive orang cakap benda elok, orang puji. So kita smile, senyum. So kalau smile means minimum. If d2y dx2 negative, orang cakap benda tak elok, orang mengumpat kita, orang cakap benda yang tak elok pasal kita, kita pun muka masam. Okay, masam macam mana? Macam ni kan. So, this is maximum. Okay. Alright, so this is the example. Okay, given that y equals to 3x squared minus 5 over x, find d2y dx2. So, we just differentiate for second time. Okay. And then, second example. Okay, just differentiate. So, kita nak cari kan, find the coordinates of stationary point. Okay. So, to find coordinate of stationary point, first, find dy dx and then equals to 0. And then, find the value of x. Dah dapat x. Okay. When you get the value of x, so substitute into your y. And then, dapatlah equation of stationary point. And then determine the nature of this point. Determine the nature of this points mean nak tentukan whether the point is maximum or minimum. And then what you should do is differentiate for second time. See? Differentiate for second time. We got 6x and then substitute 1 and negative 1. When you substitute x equals to 1, you got positive. When positive means smile. Smile is minimum. Okay? Positif ni orang cakap benda baik pasal kita. So, minimum. Bila negatif, kita masuk pun dapat negatif. Bila negatif, orang cakap benda negatif, masa. Masa means maximum. So, kita kena buat conclusion. Okay. 1 negative 1 means point 1 negative 1 is a minimum point. And negative 1, 3 is a maximum point. Okay. And then sketch the graph. So, sketch graph. Okay, that is our graph. Okay. Itulah shape of the graph that you should get because this is cubic. Okay, so just mark the minimum and maximum point. Okay, so that is our graph. Okay, so application to problems. Okay, for application to problem, kita akan masuk untuk apanya? Second part. Next part. Okay, next video. Okay, that's all for second order differentiation. How to find the stationary points. Ingat ni, for this video, kena ingat kita nak kena dapat first one, how to find the stationary point. Second one is determine the nature. Itulah. And then sketch. Sometimes kena set sketch graph. That means you must know, you must familiar with stationary point or turning point. Okay, tentukan. Okay, tentukan nature of these points untuk kita punya second objective. So dah habis video ni, make sure kena faham how to find stationary point and how to determine the nature. Okay, that's all for this video. Kita akan sambung untuk next video. Thank you.